everyone. My name is Julie.
And I'm Vanessa, and welcome to No Filters, No Fears podcast.
Cast. So today's level is a level 2 elephant. No, nada serio.
I hope it doesn't trigger. I hope it motivates. I
Yeah.
feel like nowadays you can't be too careful, and I
Right.
don't mean that in a bad way. I feel like very on guard about like what's gonna cause people to feel upset because it's not necessarily a personal trigger. Sometimes it's just people get offended for stupid stuff. I don't know. Level two.
Yes, a level 2. And today's topic is self care. What
Yeah.
does that mean? Ooh, what does
Self
it?
care, personal space, self love, all the things about the self.
So, self care is the practice of taking action to preserve or improve uh, owned health. Oh yes. What is self care for you, Vanessa? What it
For
is?
for me, um, for me now, self care looks like, we think of the typical things of like the face mask and the thing, and that's very much a self care for me. Like I love getting my uñitas done and
Yeah.
doing the face masks, but I also really enjoy, like I think I mentioned it in the autonomy episode, the taking myself out on a date, right? So like spending time with myself, but like intentional time, like to go to a restaurant or to go sit somewhere with a book and prepare myself like a nice meal or nice snacks. Um, Read a good book that nourishes my mind. So that to me is self care, and also choosing what arguments or like what discussions to get into and what people to surround
Right.
myself with. That's
Your battle.
also self care. Yeah, and a battle, but it's definitely self care. What does self care look like for you?
Spending time alone. Like I like to walk a lot, and I like to be out in the woods in a park or like listening to music,
Ooh,
or like doing a project that I wanted to do, just to sit there and just do it to do it. Getting my hair done when I get my dreads done and they feel nice. And drinking one of my favorite juices is self care.
yeah,
Watching one of my favorite movies, or I don't know, a book, yes, definitely a book.
yeah.
Taking afternoon showers, yes, I love those.
I love bath time. I like bubbles. Like, and these things sound like silly. No, no, Peter, we're here with you. We're people too.
Yeah, just us two, and my brother is there too, watching. I guess there's two people. It's
Well,
okay.
I would like to know from you, Peter, like what is self care for you? I know it's different from person to person. I Self care is incredibly important because I feel like we're part of a society that pushes us to do so much that we forget to take care, right? And we hear it all the time of like you can't pour from an empty cup and all that kind of stuff. But it's true. You are worn down and exhausted and mentally just drained. You're not necessarily not just giving yourself the opportunity to be your best self. You're not giving the best of yourself to anybody else either.
Right. Hanging out with friends too. That's self care because it's nourishing that other part of your soul. Hanging out with people you care for. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so much stuff. I didn't consider self care to be a self care. I just did it. Just to do it. I didn't think that there was a name for it. You just.
Right. Well, I a lot of like we talked about all these new identifiers coming out. The self care is one of those identifiers for something that I feel has always like when it's like take time for you or
Right.
something from the office, treat yourself,
Right.
right?
Right.
So it's something that everyone's done. Like when I'm stressed out, I know that I need to go for a walk or I need to go for a jog. Um, Jogging is not where I go to relax. That is not what I do. Okay. Well, I assume that you asked me what self-care was for me. Yes. And your answer is simple. Anything I take time to do that is meant to service myself. Yeah. Intentional time. Any intentional time.
That is true though. Anything that you meant to service yourself. Yeah.
There's so much to be said for self-care in the sense that like it's tied to so many of our previous episodes about boundaries and things like that. Every every bit of like research or quotes that I was able to look up, they all mention boundaries, self-love,
Right.
acceptance, and those kinds of things. Because when you're not feeling your best, you don't necessarily think to take care of yourself, right?
Right.
You think to do outside of yourself so you don't have to think and you don't have to deal. But so much of self care is giving yourself that space to heal and to deal with things, and to set those boundaries. What boundary is there a boundary that for you is self care? Like it's you protecting your heart, your mind, your space.
Yeah, when I don't want to talk to anybody, like I do want to disconnect from the text world, the phone world, the social medias, and people are like, "Okay, can I talk to you today?" I'm like, "No," and then they take it personal. Like I said, no. I that to me is like a big one. Like I don't want to have to compromise my me time. Like I need this, and that's a
Yeah,
bad. Like don't cross it. Like I said, no, not today. Maybe some other time, but don't get mad at me for it.
yeah. And I feel like just because somebody said no, they said no to you that day, that moment. They're allowed to.
Right.
Um, and we've talked about it in previous episodes, which is something that I have tried to work on, which is like asking someone before you unload the troubles of your day. That's still really difficult for me because like when I feel close to somebody and I'm like, I just want to tell you everything terrible that happened. But also like being cognizant that they've had a day too. They've had their own day. Can you take on to your plate a little bit of what's happening with me, or do I need to find another outlet, which is fine.
I could tell you, not today, but maybe tomorrow.
Right. And that
And
doesn't mean that they love you any less or that they don't care or that they won't be there for you when you need them.
right.
It's just, how can they how can they be of support to you if they're not in the best space? They may not give the best advice if that's what you're seeking. They may not give support the way you need it because they're so like in their own head,
Yeah.
you know?
And yeah, we have to respect that too. We're like, okay, thank you though, I appreciate it. But some people don't do that. Some people don't let them know, hey, I don't have time right now. And they just like, you know,
Growth.
no, well, I was gonna say that they let the person alone on them when they can't be there for them.
Yeah.
And it's like that's also bad when you have to say it out loud. This is not, I'm not today, like the boundary, and they just, some people don't know how to do that. They're like, yeah, yes, come talk to me, even though you yourself don't feel like you want to talk, you want to do anything. That's
Yeah.
also the
It,
problem.
it's so funny because people talk about being selfish versus being selfless, right? And
Hmm.
there's this negative connotation to being selfish
Yeah,
that I don't think is fair because there is very much a negative type of selfish.
yeah,
But to be selfish with your time and your needs and your desire, like I think it's really shitty to call, I think I've said that before, like somebody to call somebody needy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. When our last episode on the
Yeah.
day before, I mean,
Because they're not being needy, they're saying what they need to feel good. It's what they need. And
right,
hablando, like I always say, hablando se entiende la gente. People talking can understand each other. So if that's what their need is, you can let somebody know if you can meet them there or not, right? And in the case of self-care, to need space, to need distance sometimes is you giving the best to the person, to the people in your life, because you know that you're not going to be the most present or the most present. Have you heard of this whole mindfulness movement? Like people working on being more mindful?
yes, was, what, a couple of 4 years ago or something, I started that whole like being mindful that thing as well, because I used to be a person that forget about it. But now I didn't know there was a movement. I didn't know that people are
Well,
actually trying.
I say movement, but like it's a lot more people are, well, mindful of being mindful.
Yeah.
That, and it's funny because, for example, our generation gets accused a lot of like living in their own bubble and ignoring that other people exist. And they're not wrong. They're
Yeah.
not wrong. Like, I see people just doing for themselves out in the day, like abren una puerta and they'll slam it in your face, even though you're right behind them, like those kinds of things. So yes, that is very much just being in your own bubble, go, go, go. And yes, you have to remain focused on the things that you're doing and whatnot, but we're not on this planet alone. And I think right now during the pandemic, we all realized how we were doing our own thing, but now when you really couldn't be close to anyone and we were all devoid of human contact, we
Right.
really began to recognize, you know, that those small moments where you have the opportunity to be present with another being, to be present. Simple hello.
Right.
But within all of that, also finding that balance because we did have to be alone all this time. So you find hobbies to do and things to keep yourself entertained, to be with yourself. We all read more, we all Googled stuff more.
People adopted pets that I hope that they get to keep post pandemic or
Yeah,
the rest of their life.
exactly. Think the whole mindfulness goes so hand in hand with the self-care because you're also being mindful in these bouts of silence, of like silence that you did not choose and the connection that you didn't choose. You have to think and you hear the own voices, or like Brene Brown says, the stories in your head about situations or unresolved feelings and emotions. And we talked about it all, attachment styles and boundaries and
Language.
concerns, and like figuring out what all of that looks like for each of us. It takes time on your own to do it yourself.
To realize that they don't even realize that they didn't like being with themselves. Like they didn't even realize that they never spend time with themselves.
I I used to really have an issue with being alone. Like I always, hello. I always needed to, like, I had to be with people. It was
Yeah.
very and I really still do enjoy that. I love being around my friends. I love being around my family, you know, like, being with my partners, whatever. I enjoy being close to people in general. And Chubi's like, no.
I'm the opposite. I mean, I do enjoy being with my family and my friends, but like the majority of the time, like maybe like 90% of the time, I'd rather be alone
Right.
because I don't have to deal with other people's anything.
Right. Well, no, I specifically I'm happy to be around my tribe. But like in general, I do like doing people populated things. And just even before the pandemic, that's when I really started to kind of figure out what it was to be alone. And I was alone a lot. Like, okay, why does it's such an issue for me to be with myself? What is
Yeah.
it about me that I'm trying not to deal with? Or why don't I like me? I'm pretty cool to hang out with. If other people want to hang out with me, why don't I want to hang out with myself?
All right. That's the
Uh,
thing. I mean, last year brought a lot of thoughts to people's, head and how they manage the world they are around, and how they deal with people. It's life changing.
yeah,
2020 was a shit show, and then it was more of a eye opening for everybody.
yeah. And like self-care doesn't look the same for everyone. Everybody associates it with like day at the spa, a massage, a thing. But like you said, listening to music, anything that I do that self-care has music involved in one way or another, you know? So for some people, it's going to karaoke,
Video games,
playing video games,
tennis, who knows, anything, whatever they choose to do with their
whatever. And self-care doesn't even mean that you're by yourself sometimes. You're
right,
doing something that is good for you, that you enjoy doing, whether it's good for your mind, whether it's good for your spirit, whether it's good for your body, whatever the case may be.
right.
Now, when you add that to doing for yourself, good stuff. Now, we also said that this episode was going to be about like personal space as well, like protecting your personal space. I think that it has so much to do with like the types of personalities that we talked about in the attachment styles of like people who want to bust in through that bubble and are just like, okay, this is my personal space and you've
Right.
crossed it. Like,
Exactly. I hate people like that. I'm over here like, did I invite you at all? No, I did not.
I'm super touchy and huggy pants.
I know.
I am this person. I am the super, but I also like understand like not everyone is like that. Learn to read a room kind of situation.
Right.
It's part of mindfulness, right? If you're just in your own energy, in your own bubble, estoy happy and I want to do, and everything is out, you have zero like observation of like what somebody else is feeling to be able like, oh, jumping and hugging all up on you is not what you want, right?
If that were to happen to me, I'm like, I don't know where you get this energy from, but leave it at the door. Cause it's funny because the last time we hung out, you're like, "Can I give you a hug?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." You know, but it sounded like a rhetorical, like, "Why?" But I didn't. To me, it sounded like that. I'm like, "No, no, no, no. It's okay. Thank you for asking."
Oh
You know,
man. Well, because we
just
talked about con- party person, sounds like a party person to me. Who, me?
yeah, I can
I
say
am
that.
a party person. I am a party person, but like, so there's, leave it to me to be an in-betweenie for all the things. I can't, I don't believe in just, I don't believe in absolutes, and B, I don't believe in that you have to pick just one thing.
Right.
Personally. So I'm what is considered an ambivert,
Yeah.
right? So I'm very much I'm very and I lean more towards the extroverted, obviously. But like I love being around people. I love being the life of the party. I am an actor. I love the limelight. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna lie. But I definitely need recharge time,
You could
you
tell
know?
when you need to be alone. You're like, oh, I don't want to be hanging out with nobody today.
Yeah. And the thing is like before I used to feel guilty. I feel like so many of us, and I don't know if it's a cultural thing or it's just a thing, we're
Yeah.
taught that wanting to be alone or needing to do something for yourself was
Wrong.
selfish and wrong. And so we were taught to feel ashamed of wanting to exert that need. I don't think that that's the case anymore. And now that, that we're realizing it's fine, it's like, ooh, what can I do?
Yeah, because we're breaking down those stigmas, and I think it's a cultural thing. I personally think it is. I mean, if anybody has a different, thought on that, share with us. But I think it's a cultural thing because Hispanics, we don't talk about, like we spoke before with mental illness. If you're depressed, tú no lo habla, you don't say anything. So if you're feeling sad, you better brush it off, and that's it. If you want to do something for yourself, you can because I said you do this. So I
Yeah.
think,
I, part of like, at least, I don't even know what the word is anymore. Latin culture,
yeah,
Latinx culture. It's like because it's for the family and we all do together. And so if you're doing something apart, te estás apartando de la familia.
yeah,
You're separating yourself from the family. Self-discovery is a bumpy, funky road, right? And sometimes it can feel like you're disconnecting from people, and it's not the case,
right.
right? We all go through our soul searching, person searching bit. But that guilt trip that gets laid on you of like you're separating yourself, you're different, you've changed, as though it's a bad thing. Like transformation and growth is a bad thing. I mean, definitely people change for the worse sometimes.
Right.
There's that. Like if somebody's getting heavy into like things that are causing them
Yeah.
problems, like causing them mental health issues, causing them health issues, period. Like I get it. But if they're not doing anything like that, they're just changing from the person that you knew.
Right.
And and that's change in a person can be very difficult for others,
They,
especially parents.
right, because they can't let the other person that they know go. Like they are not accepting of the need. This is the same person, just a little bit evolved, a little bit more, growth in there. And it's hard for some people to let that image of who they knew go. So that's a problem, apparently.
Yeah, and I think going even further outside the box of like the manis, the petties, the going to the gym as self-care, living authentically, whatever that means to you at whatever chapter of your life, the extent of authenticity that you can produce
Right.
is self-care. Being genuine, being transparent, communicating, that's self-care. Like in hiding, I feel like we do ourselves and those around us a disservice because they're not really getting to know us. They're getting to know who who we want, who we know they want us to be.
And obviously, if you're able to be your authentic self in a safe way, do so. But if you can, and that is the way that you are doing self care by protecting
Yeah.
yourself in that way, that also is fine because you come first, obviously. So your safety is also important. Gotta get that out there because sometimes people can be authentic in whatever
Yeah.
that is because it might bring harm to them. So
Right.
safety
Yeah,
first.
like managing levels of vulnerability, right? Because it's not, you can't just be vulnerable with everybody because some
Right,
people don't have your best interests at heart. But putting yourself out there to be seen, right?
right.
Then you can kind of gauge, okay, this is my these people I can go in a little bit further with and be even more vulnerable. I think I had mentioned many moons back the third circle.
Yeah. Second
Okay,
circle.
second circle. I know there's a reason I mentioned the third circle. So um the extroverts tend to be that third circle, that the energy is everything out, out, out all the time, and they're just like bombarding people. Then there's first circle, which is like all everything is being taken in, but nothing is being given out.
Mm-hmm.
And then second circle is being fully present. It's an even exchange of energy going in and out, observation, and finding that balance is tricky. But it's also self-care. You got to know when to be in the first circle, got to know when to be in the third circle, and when to have that balance of both.
But remember, this is another thing that people don't, some people don't even know themselves like that. They don't listen to the signs their body is, emitting. Like your body will tell you when you need time. Your mind is telling you all the time what it needs, what it wants, but you're not listening to it because you're not sitting with yourself and you're not being present with yourself to understand how you are, how you behave, what triggers you. And therefore, some people have trouble being in the second circle, first circle, because they don't know anything about themselves.
Right? Absolutely. I like, and we've again so many of past episodes because we have talked a lot about mental health. Self-care has a lot to do with what you know of yourself as a person, where your mental health is at. And a lot of that stems from, your attached, like what you saw growing up,
Yeah,
you know? Um, not that there's, no one's saying good or bad. And hashtag, we're not therapists. But
yeah.
from what I have gathered, what I have read, um, so much of what we see growing up, you know, I'm never going to knock a mother who sacrifices and works hard, to take care of their family because they're a single parent. Never going to knock that. But also, it puts certain things in that child's mind of like, this is how you go. This is how life is. Like I'm very much, and this runs in my family, a workaholic.
Yeah.
I take 3 and 4 jobs at the same time, and when you have too much on your plate and people start telling you like to be never this discussion, Vanessa, Vanessa, can you really do tal cosa because you're saying you have like 30,000 things? And it's really been a struggle to recognize that pattern and say, I can't, because something is going to come up missing.
Yeah,
Somebody's going to get the short end of the stick.
you have to
So,
hold yourself accountable, and your friends have to hold you accountable. So
without
therefore,
being nasty, Chubi's never been nasty.
I try not to because sometimes me saca de los quicios, like I do get frustrated. But I mean it from a place of love too, because I'm like, I want to see you thrive too.
Yeah,
But it gets to the point where now it's affecting me.
right.
So holding yourself accountable and back and forth.
And so and so thank you for saying that, because yes, holding yourself accountable, but people holding you accountable. I have a question for you.
Mm,
When you see a friend, well, and obviously I know from my own experience, but a friend outside of me,
right.
um, when you see a friend not being their best self, right? Repeating patterns that have consistently been detrimental to
Mm,
multiple aspects of their life, do you just support them y pasarle la mano, or do you say, hey, and you hold up the mirror and say, you're doing this, and not to be nasty, like obviously you're coming from a place of love, you care about this person.
yeah.
Do you call them on their shit, or damn it, sorry, YouTube,
No, it's fine. Knowing
just
me,
beat me?
knowing me, what do I do? Yes, of course. I'm
Yeah,
like, listen, this is what's been going on for this many years. I've told you once, told you twice. What is going on? What is happening with you that you're repeating this? Are you in a funk? So yes, I
but
do go to them and tell them that this is now affecting me, and what can we do together to fix it? And if I see that you're not trying, then I can't help you.
I've had the conversation and people have like known that I wouldn't. And I guess it depends on the kind of relationship that you have with the person
Yeah.
as well, and how you approach it. I don't know. Maybe I'm a metiche and I'm still working on being a fixer heavily, but I don't know how to see somebody that I care about, that I've seen be their best self, that I like. I know. You also hear people, like when you know someone, you know the things that have hurt them in their past. You
Yeah.
know what they're capable of. You know what their aspirations are. And when you see them deviating so far from it, like want to reel them back in. And I've been told in the past, no, don't do, like, you shouldn't do it like that, or like, let them figure it out. I'm not saying do as I do or say. I'm
Yeah.
saying this is what I have observed, and I care about you, and I feel like you could do better for yourself in this scenario. You know, in the end, the person's gonna do what's best for them, right? Self care. You got to do what's best for you, regardless of whether it disappoints someone else. Now, if it's causing someone else harm, check yourself. But
I
if it's just disappointing to them, but it's not killing them, like, if they really love you, they'll see the meaning in it for you and the importance of it. You know what I'm saying? I just feel like those conversations are difficult, but it's also so much a part of self-care. Like allowing yourself to be loved and taken care of sometimes. It's okay.
I feel like going back to what you were saying about, I think it depends on the relationship as well. Because sometimes it's not your place, and I get that. It depends. But if you have been friends for 20 years or even 15, anything 10, whatever, and you guys do get along and everything's good and you guys support each other, then why not? Pero si es un amiguito, una amiguita that you've known for, let's say, a year or two, and you're not there yet, and I guess it depends. It does, and it
I
depends how
get,
good also it is.
yeah, I mean, I totally get it. And I agree. Like, my best friend of 20 plus years calls me on my crap all the time. And it always starts with, I love you. You know, I love you. But you've said that you don't want to do this 50 times and you're still doing it and you're bitching about how it went wrong. It's gone wrong every time and you did it the same. So stop complaining unless you're actually going to do something about it. Okay, I have to stick my tongue in my butt and do something different, right? But I've also, and in in very recent years, I've learned this more than ever, that sometimes the amount of time with someone is only a factor,
Okay.
right? the connection can be so much deeper when you have had super vulnerable moments with people that you've shared. These are my hopes, these are my aspirations, this is what I no longer want to be. When they turn around and say, we just had a conversation and you said that you want this, but you're doing this, is that really going to help you get there? You can't turn around and get upset at them for remembering what you said hurt, right?
Right.
Like, they're purposely helping you from stopping to put lemon and salt in your own wounds. So you can't get mad at them for calling you on your crap.
To me, it's always been quality over quantity. Because you can be in a friendship or a relationship, whatever, with somebody for 15 years and
Relationship.
with them for over 15 years and be a shitty as a friendship where there's no quality moments that you could say that you cultivated the relationship and set a foundation for it.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's a shitty structure.
absolutely. And I think you hit it on the head. You mentioned accountability. That's also self care. Holding yourself accountable. I therapist Helen always brings up like the past stuff. She's like um past you will did something for future you. So like
Yeah,
if you save yourself a half of a sandwich, future you is thankful because they have a snack later,
yeah,
kind of deal. One day I was crying in my car because past Vanessa was horrible about taking care of car crap and didn't pay tickets, didn't take the car to get oil changed, and present Vanessa had to deal with all that crap.
yeah. You're suffering for your consequence for your.
Right. So self care is also like holding yourself accountable for crap and taking care of it, like not letting it.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, for example, meal prepping. Then the days that I'm in pain, future me save my. I mean, past me save my ass because now I can't cook. So now I have meals already prepped. Now I just have to put it in the microwave. Yay me,
Yeah,
Just moments like that. Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
it's a small thing, but it's so big though.
Self care is also, I feel, silence. There's a lot of silence in self care. I always said I was bad at meditating. Do you meditate?
Yeah.
Oh, you must be so great at it. Mind you, my mother is a Reiki master. Okay? Reiki master and a healer and the whole deal. I am a hiribilla. I cannot sit still, right? Come to learn that meditation doesn't have to look like all the yogis with the, cross. It's,
Yeah.
meditation for me is vibing out to music that touches my freaking soul, right? So whether it's lyrically, whether it's actually musically, just like blast and like zone out, get lost in the music. Or meditation sometimes it's just laying staring at the ceiling. My mind is still blanked out. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to be sitting up, and the intention is always going to be to like relax. Meditation looks different for everyone, but also like sitting in silence with yourself is really powerful. You really get to, and it's hard. Are you an overthinker? Are you much? I don't think you're much of an overthinker.
I know, but it depends on what. But no, as a general, no, I'm not. I'm not an overthinker.
Right. So as an overthinker, it's hard to sit in silence with yourself because that's when
I was
your
just
brain
going to ask you that. Do you have internal dialogue with yourself a lot?
all the time. All the time. It never stops. And sometimes it's louder than others, and sometimes it's sadder than others. Right. So sometimes that's where that being alone, right? And reframing it to being with myself had to happen.
Yeah.
Because if I allowed myself to believe that I was alone and was always going to be alone, and then started also listening to the thoughts, it was just, it's horrific. And so many of us do that to ourselves sometimes. We get so trapped in our head and in those stories versus what the reality might be. and we create spaces for ourselves that are not really what we want, that we know that are so deserving of more,
Right.
right? And well, we said it with autonomy. It's knowing your worth and your value and asserting it. Self care is giving yourself your value, giving yourself your worth, and taking care of yourself as a worthy individual.
And but believing and knowing it, that that's true.
Yeah.
Other people can't seem to, you know, accept that. Am I
Hmm.
worthy? Are you sure? So the thoughts reframe.
Yep. And there's so many things out there that say like I feel like there's no room sometimes for the contradiction that happens in our brains. How you can love yourself and want the best for yourself, but not necessarily do the best for yourself all the time, right? And the same way that we're so great at calling our friends out on their crap, calling ourselves out on our own thing is difficult, because then that means you have to face the fact that you doing it to yourself.
It's funny because I do that to myself a lot. Like when I was telling you that I know I'm very analytical with how I work and my work ethic and no fruits, no fears, and how I do this, and I know that I don't let's lack of a better statement, let you breathe, because I'm like I. So I have to like pull back, and I know that about myself. I know that, but I have certain expectations that I know that I can't hold you to that because it's unrealistic.
Right.
I have to meet you where you're at. So this is me toning it down and meeting you where you're at, so we could work together to be better. So that's not
And I think, right, and this is why I'm not a fan of absolutes, right? Because even in this conversation we see that there's the extremes of us knowing the information, like we have to meet people where they're at, and our expectations are expectations and standards are standards, but some, maybe no compaginan with somebody else. But at the same time, other people, maybe it would benefit them to elevate certain standards and certain things, right? And instead of saying I can only meet you at 20%, okay, I can try and meet you at 35%. kind of kind of situation. And internally, when it comes to like self-care and things like that, it's self-love, right? So so much of what we do sometimes shows opposite, like I love me, and the opposite is you're not taking the best care of yourself, right? You're letting yourself get banged up all over the place. You're drinking and driving, things like that, that are not showing that you care for yourself or your well-being very much. But also knowing that you love yourself, but still having difficulty dealing maybe with what you see in the mirror, maybe with relationships that may not be going the way you think, knowing that you deserve something and asserting it, but at the same time still feeling sad. Those are things that can live in the same space.
right.
And I think for a long time, we've been made to believe that you either love yourself or you don't. You either do this or you don't do that. You know what I mean? I, it doesn't have to be one or the other. Humans, we're complicated as shit.
As long as
Sorry.
As long as you recognize what you don't love about yourself, and I put that in quotations because what you don't like about yourself, and you can recognize that, you can work towards baby steps to be better, and eventually get to a place where you do love yourself fully, and you do see yourself as worthy, and you do see yourself that you are deserving. But you have to be honest with yourself about what you don't like first. What can you do that will help you feel better? And the conversation starts with yourself,
Yeah.
and you could go from there.
Just like radical honesty, we talked about radical honesty. There's the whole radical self-love,
Mhm.
right? And I had a friend who mentioned that they used to have they used to be fat phobic. Yes, attraction is something very personal, right? Like you're attracted to what you're attracted to. So some people can't you're not going to take it personal. I like brunettes, I like blondes, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So, but this particular person, we were having that conversation, and they explained that they recognized that it wasn't a preference thing, it was an embedded thing, right?
Mm,
A kind of socially dictated as to what was attractive
right, right.
and what they were feeding themselves, their eyes, their mind, was certain images. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But in mixing it up and making himself more available to seeing different body types or
Mm.
whatever, it kind of changed the perspective of what that could be. And that is, I feel like that can be the same thing for so many things in life. If you only feed yourself one bit of information, one side of a story,
That's
that's
it.
all you're ever going to know. Échale sazón.
Mm.
Uh,
Quotey quotes, do you have any?
I have, okay, so I'm very excited for quote quotes. So, of course, I have a Brené Brown quote because, of course, and I have some other ones. But today I'm also going to be reading some quotey quotes from two awesome books. I was recently gifted Clarity and Connection and Inward by Young Pueblo, which you guys can follow on Instagram and all of his. Wait, let me this better. Um, Clarity and Connection is his newest book that's out. It's absolutely beautiful. And then Inward was his first book. And in here talks a lot about um, self-love and um, connection. So I'm going to read some of the quote quotes from in here. And we just talked about this. So this is perfect. Being honest with yourself is an act of self-love, which in turn is self-care. Self-love is creating space in your life to heal your body and mind. Do not confuse self love with thinking that you're better than anyone else. True self love is accepting yourself for all that you are, especially the darkest parts. Hold on. I got, look at my little handmade bookmarks. One of the most important qualities to develop in life is determination. At some point, you just have to put your foot down and say, I'm going to move in this new direction, and no person or situation is going to stop me. Great transformations need a beginning. Um, we talked about how self-love can also, oh, his name is on the screen. Okay. I'm a very big fan. Um, self-love can also look or needs requires boundaries. So that's saying no matter what, I need to do this for in the end, in the long run, those people that you're saying no to are going to benefit from that growth that you go through, right? You got to go through the muck first, but you become kinder and you begin to realize you don't have to shun everyone and completely disconnect in order to find yourself or find balance.
Right.
You start to find that balance even with like in communicating with people. But great transformation starts with beginning. So I agree with that. Learning how to breathe and be okay when my mind feels dark and gray. To accept this passing moment without suppression or lasting fear. To know that the clouds moving through me do not define who I am or who I will be. Learning the art of letting go has been the skill my mind always sought. Now I see that I am a river always changing while moving gently in the direction of total liberty. Self care is very liberating, isn't it? Like when you have time with yourself and you learn something new about yourself. I like it. It's nice.
I
Oh,
don't know, like a couple of years ago, I decided to do me. Not literally, guys, but I convert. I
that's
decided
also self care.
it is, that is. No, I decided to put myself first because I was tired of like doing everything for everybody else and giving from an empty, broken cup at that moment, you know? And I was tired of that shit. I was literally tired. And it came to the point where it's like, no, this is it. That's it. So everything started changing from that moment of like, when you get tired of that, when you literally see yourself just tired of the same repeated patterns. So again, it begins with you
Yeah.
wanting you to be better. Again, like I always say, the 10 years ago me or 11, 12 at this point, not the same person.
Oh yeah. Same.
They were rude, they were not nice, they were not mindful, they were in their own bubble, me, 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 me. I wanted my way, if not the highway. And I changed that. I changed that. One, because that was not a nice person, and two, because I wanted better. I wanted to be better. I mean, I still don't care if people don't like me or not at the end of the day. That hasn't changed. But the way people do perceive me and the relationship I do have that I have cultivated over the years, I do care for that.
Yeah.
So it starts with you.
It's funny that you said it. I used to get really angry, and the anger, in acting, they teach us that anger is never really anger. It comes from hurt, right? So I was hurt that I would do so much for the people that I cared about and never felt it reciprocated in the way that I would want or the way that I expected, right? Or that they would make choices that would hurt me or disappoint me. I would take it so personally, but I would do for you and I would do for you and I would do, right? Pushing that again on someone else when I finally realized they're doing what's right for them.
Right.
Either I can ask them why that's right for them and like why they felt that it was okay to like dismiss or not consider me, right? Or but respect it in the end because they are doing what's right for them. It wasn't hurting me. It was hurting my ego more than anything to not have been quote unquote chosen. Which no me votaron. They just, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, but that is difficult because you want to be loved the way that you love,
That's the hard thing for me that I learned the hard way.
right? And Angie reminds me of this all the time. And it's a quote that's all over the internet, but she reminds me of it all the time. Not everyone is like you. Not everyone will love like you. Not everyone will do like you. And that doesn't mean it's less. It just means it's different. And like you were saying before about meeting people where they're at. So I had to really learn how to not think so personally, but also recognize that there was work that I had to do about and spend time with myself so as to make choices that were for me, not for everybody else. Because I was getting affected by everybody else taking care of themselves and feeling like I was being neglected. But then on top of that, I was neglecting myself, doing for all those people that I felt were neglecting me.
And this is why I became selfish. I put myself first. So that's not
And
the
no, no, seriously, it's like what's that quote about boundaries? Like you learn to know who the people are around you when you start to place healthy boundaries. Those that respect them
are there, yeah.
are there. Those that give you pushback, you start having serious conversations and questioning
Right,
because they are no longer going to get from you what they used to. That change is scary.
right.
That change is scary. That I feel like people think that the unconditional part or like the I'll be there for you no matter what goes away just because someone's standing up for themselves and doing what's right for them.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Okay, let's finish up these quotey quotes. Living a connected life is ultimately about setting boundaries, spending less time and energy hustling and winning over people who don't matter, and seeing the value of working on cultivating a connection with family and close friends. Brene Brown.
And this is what I'm saying. Like my circle is so small, and I'm not gonna have time for the second circle or third circles of other people that are trying to interject themselves. If you're not in the circle, it's for a reason.
Mm.
know? And that is hard for people to understand. That yes, you may see your circles only, you can only count four people that are friends, but that's okay. Some people are not in your life because they do not serve a purpose. Either
Yep.
they're toxic for you, or you just can't, they're not being respectful. They're crossing your boundaries. So obviously they're not gonna be there.
Sometimes people come into our lives for that chapter, for that moment,
And
and you thank them for the space, for entering your orbit for whatever amount of time. Um, I'm a person who battles a lot with the meaning of forever, right? And what forever looks like. Forever can be a month and forever can be an eternity, right? So you make your forever however you make it. Being ourselves means sometimes having to find courage to stand alone. Brene Brown, our spirit animal.
yep, anybody's watching this, let them know that we want her in our show. Yep, it's
Yeah,
happening. It's happening.
young Pueblo, young Pueblo, we want you to. The most dangerous stories we make up are the narratives that diminish our inherent worthiness. We must reclaim the truth about our lovability, divinity, and creativity. That's on spending time with ourselves and the conversations that we have with ourselves in our head. Self-love, self-care, caring for yourself is being kind to yourself, talking nicely to yourself. I can be really crappy to myself. Do you talk down to yourself ever?
Yeah, it depends on what the issues being discussed with myself.
Oh, those conversations with the self. But I get called out on it pretty frequently. Like if I say something really harsh, and I recognize that I can be really harsh. Like, esa que come mierda. Like, and I'm
Yeah,
not saying it to be mean to myself. It's just like, oh, that was dumb. But I say it with such like anger that it's really affected people around me that they're like, hey,
are you okay? Yeah.
like, don't be so nasty to yourself. I can be really harsh to myself. Well, not so much anymore. I'm trying to be better, reframing, you know,
But
but
that is the thing. You're recognizing these patterns that you are nasty to yourself, and now next time you'll be like, "Espérate, hold on, let me."
yeah, the physical, like looking in the mirror and be like, oh my God, this is like speaking so ugly to yourself. And we talked about that we're going to look in the mirror and say positive things or something that you love.
Yeah,
And those kinds of things are also self-care. Being kind, how you talk to yourself, the things that you think. All of these things affect so many parts of our body. Scientifically proven
yeah,
that your thought process and those kinds of things really do affect your day to day and how you approach things. Um, that was it for my quotey quotes. We'll be posting some stuff throughout the week.
so yes, guys, just remember to love yourself, and cultivate little things here and there. Do things that make you happy, and try to find new ways to make you happy, and things that make you feel at peace and at home, and like you could live with yourself and talk with yourself and actually look at yourself and say, I like that person I see in the mirror. I love them, but actually mean it and actually feel it in your heart.
Yeah,
And these steps, if you see something, a pattern, you could always change that. That's the beauty about it. You could change patterns and reframe and grow and be better. And that, remember, it's not just you do it once and then it stops. It's always an ongoing growth. And
yeah.
that is the beauty about it.
And also that, self-care, taking care of yourself, knowing yourself is massively important, but also that we are not islands. And I think that was very evident in this last year and almost a year and a half now that um that we're not islands. So when you are struggling, part of the self-care is allowing yourself to be loved, allowing yourself to be helped, allowing yourself to ask for help. We
We're so
stand and we sabotage ourselves sometimes. We stand in our own way. We let our ego and our pride get the best of us. Um, and sometimes it hurts more than it helps. My final thought is going to be another quote. You are worth the quiet moment. You are worth the deeper breath. You are worth the time it takes to slow down, be still, and rest. By Dominique Rose. Take time for yourself. Treat yourself.
Let's go listen to music.
Let's do
Have a
it.
good night, everybody.
Stay fearless, guys.